The cold had stopped hurting hours ago. That was the dangerous part. Ilara knew it meant her body was giving up. She curled tighter against the stone wall of the cellar, her thin dress doing nothing against the bitter chill that seeped through the floor, the walls, the very air. 3 days. Her uncle had locked her down here 3 days ago, and the only sustenance had been a cup of water shoved through the slot in the door each morning. Her crime? Existing. Ilara had been a burden to the Thornwood pack since the day her parents died. An Omega with no family, no prospects, no value. Her uncle had taken her in only because the pack elders demanded it, and he'd made her pay for that charity every day since. But this punishment was different. This time, there was a reason beyond his usual cruelty. The Lycan king was visiting. King Caelan of the Northern Realm had sent word that he would be touring the border packs, assessing their strength and loyalty. The Thornwood pack was small, insignificant, but they fell within his territory. Her uncle, the Alpha, had been preparing for weeks, cleaning the pack house, rehearsing speeches, hiding anything that might embarrass him, including her. An unmated Omega wandering around during the king's visit? Her uncle had laughed when he'd dragged her to the cellar. You'd probably trip over your own feet and humiliate us all. No. You'll stay down here until he's gone. That had been 3 days ago. The king's visit was only supposed to last 1 day. Either something had delayed him, or her uncle had simply forgotten about her. Ilara suspected the latter. She pressed her forehead to her knees, trying to conserve what little warmth remained in her body. Her wolf was silent, too weak from hunger and cold to even whimper. She'd stopped shivering sometime during the night, and she knew that was a bad sign. The cold was winning. I'm going to die down here. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt only a dull acceptance. What was there to live for, really? More years of servitude, more punishments, more reminders that she was worthless, unwanted, a mistake of nature? At least the cold was quiet. At least the cold didn't scream at her. She was drifting, consciousness fading at the edges, when she heard it. Footsteps above. Heavy ones, moving with purpose. Then voices, muffled through the floorboards. Certainly not hiding anything, Your Majesty. The cellar is just storage. Nothing of interest. Her uncle. Ilara's heart clenched. The king was still here? I smell something. A new voice. Deep, resonant, carrying an authority that made even her weakened wolf lift its head. Someone. That's impossible, Your Majesty. No one has been down there in months. You're lying. The words were spoken quietly, but they carried the weight of absolute certainty. Ilara heard her uncle stammer, heard other voices rising in nervous protest. Then footsteps, coming closer, descending the stairs to the cellar. Ilara tried to push herself upright, some instinct demanding she not be found cowering on the floor. But her body wouldn't cooperate. Her limbs were too cold, too weak. She managed only to lift her head as light flooded the stairwell. The door is locked, Your Majesty. I don't have the key with me. A thunderous crack split the air. The heavy wooden door, 3 inches thick, reinforced with iron bands, exploded inward. Splinters scattered across the stone floor. The iron lock clattered against the far wall, twisted and broken, and in the doorway stood a man. Number. Not just a man, a king. He was enormous, taller than any wolf she'd ever seen, broad-shouldered, built like a warrior from the old stories. Dark hair fell past his shoulders, and his eyes— gods. His eyes were the color of molten gold, burning in the dim light of the cellar. Those eyes found her immediately, fixed on her with an intensity that should have frightened her. Instead, something in her chest cracked open. The Lycan king went utterly still. For a long moment, he simply stared at her. This pathetic, frozen, starving Omega curled on the floor of a cellar. She saw his nostrils flare, saw his hands clench into fists at his sides, saw something shift in his expression, something that looked almost like pain. Then he moved. He crossed the cellar in 3 strides, and before Elara could react, he was kneeling in front of her. His hand came up. She flinched instinctively, expecting a blow, but he only touched her face. Gently, so gently. His skin was warm, impossibly warm against her frozen cheek. How long? His voice was rough, barely controlled. Elara blinked at him, not understanding the question. What? How long have you been down here? 3 days. The words came out as a whisper. I think I lost count. Something flickered in those golden eyes, something dangerous. He shrugged off his cloak, thick black fur, worth more than everything Elara had ever owned combined, and wrapped it around her shoulders. The warmth was so sudden, so overwhelming, that she gasped. Can you stand? She tried. She truly tried. But her legs buckled the moment she put weight on them, and she would have fallen if he hadn't caught her. He caught her like it was nothing, like she weighed nothing at all. I've got you. His arms tightened around her, lifting her against his chest. I've got you. Elara stared up at him, too confused to speak. This was the Lycan king, the most powerful wolf in 7 territories. He commanded armies, ruled over millions, made alphas tremble with a glance. And he was carrying her like she was something precious. Your Majesty. Her uncle's voice came from the doorway, high and panicked. I can explain. No. The king didn't even look at him. His eyes stayed on Elara's face, and his voice dropped to something soft, something meant only for her. You're safe now. I'm taking you out of here. I don't understand, she breathed. He smiled then, small, pained, but real. I know. But you will. He carried her up the stairs, past her uncle's ashen face, past the gathered pack members who stared in horrified silence. And as the warmth of his body seeped into her frozen bones, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had just shifted. She just didn't know what. Elara woke in a bed, not her thin pallet in the servants' quarters, not the cold stone floor of the cellar, an actual bed, soft mattress, thick blankets, pillows that smelled of lavender and something else. Something warm and rich that made her wolf stir with recognition. She opened her eyes to an unfamiliar ceiling, high wooden beams, firelight dancing across the walls, a room larger than any she'd ever slept in. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Then memory crashed back. The cellar, the cold, the door exploding inward, and him, the king, carrying her like she mattered. Elara sat up too quickly and her head spun. She was wearing different clothes, she realized. A soft nightgown, clean and white. Someone had bathed her, changed her, put her in this bed. Easy. The voice came from beside the fire. Ilara's breath caught as the Lycan king rose from a chair she hadn't noticed, setting aside a book. He'd been sitting there, watching over her. How do you feel? He asked, approaching slowly, as though he didn't want to startle her. Ilara's voice came out rough, unused. Where am I? My chambers, in your uncle's pack house. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly at the mention of her uncle. The healer said you needed warmth and rest. This was the warmest room available. Your chambers? She looked around again, understanding dawning, the size of the room, the quality of the furnishings, the scent on the pillows. His scent. I shouldn't be here. If my uncle finds out, your uncle, the king said quietly, is currently locked in his own cellar. He won't be finding out anything. Ilara stared at him. What? He locked you in a freezing cellar for 3 days without food. The king's voice remained calm, but something burned beneath the surface. Did you think I would simply overlook that? But he's the Alpha. This is his territory. His territory exists because I allow it to exist. The king moved closer, lowering himself to sit on the edge of the bed. Not too close, giving her space. I am the king, Ilara. There is no authority higher than mine, and I do not tolerate the abuse of pack members, especially not. He paused, something shifting in his expression. Especially not you. That last part, especially not you, hung in the air between them. Ilara didn't understand it, didn't understand any of this. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why do you care? I'm no one. I'm just an Omega. You're my mate. The words landed like a physical blow. Ilara stopped breathing. That's impossible, she whispered. I assure you it's not. The king, Kalen, she remembered his name was Kalen, met her eyes steadily. The moment I descended those stairs, the moment your scent reached me, I knew. My wolf knew. You are mine, Ilara, my fated mate, the one I've been waiting 300 years to find. 300 years. The number echoed in her mind. He'd been alive for 300 years, and somehow, impossibly, fate had matched him with her. A worthless Omega locked in a cellar. There's been a mistake, she said, her voice trembling. I can't be. You're the king. You should have a queen who's beautiful and powerful and I should have you. He said it simply, without hesitation. I don't want beautiful and powerful. I want my mate. I want you. Tears burned at the corners of Ilara's eyes. She didn't understand why. You don't know me. You don't know what I am. My uncle says I'm useless, that I can't do anything right, that I'm a burden on the pack. Your uncle, Kalen interrupted gently, is a cruel, small-minded man who couldn't recognize treasure if it was placed directly in his hands. He reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand in his. His palm was warm, his grip careful. I don't expect you to believe me yet. You've been told you're worthless for so long that the lie has become your truth. But I am patient, Ilara. I have waited centuries. I can wait a little longer for you to see yourself the way I see you. And how do you see me? She asked, barely above a whisper. As a survivor. His thumb traced gentle circles over her knuckles. As someone who endured years of cruelty and emerged with her spirit intact. As my mate. My equal. My future queen, if you'll have me. Queen. The word was so absurd that Ilara almost laughed. Almost. I don't know how to be a queen. You'll learn. I'll teach you. Or rather, we'll figure it out together. He released her hand and stood, moving toward a table by the window. But first, you need to eat. The healer said you've been starving for days. He returned with a tray. Bread, cheese, sliced fruit, a bowl of warm broth. Simple food, but more than Ilara had seen in weeks. Her stomach cramped at the sight of it. Slowly, Kalen cautioned as she reached for the bread. Your body needs time to adjust. She ate. He watched. Not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in a way that suggested he needed to see her eat, needed to know she was being cared for. When she'd finished half the tray and couldn't manage another bite, he set it aside. "Rest now," he said. "We'll talk more tomorrow." "Where will you sleep?" Ilara asked, suddenly aware that she was in his bed. "The chair is comfortable enough." "You can't sleep in a chair. You're the king." Something warm flickered in his golden eyes. "And you're my mate. Your comfort matters more than my own." He pulled a blanket from a chest at the foot of the bed and settled back into the chair by the fire. "Sleep, Ilara. For the first time in years, you're safe. No one will hurt you here." She wanted to argue, wanted to insist that she didn't deserve this, that there had been some cosmic mistake, that he would realize his error and send her back to the cellar where she belonged. But the bed was soft. The fire was warm. And despite everything, despite all logic, she believed him. She slept. Over the following days, Ilara learned what it meant to be cared for. Kalen was patient in ways she hadn't known a person could be. He didn't push her to accept the mate bond, didn't demand anything from her. He simply stayed, ate meals with her, talked with her, asked questions about her life. Not the painful parts, but the small things. Her favorite foods, whether she preferred sunrise or sunset, if she'd ever learned to read. When she admitted, shamefully, that she hadn't, he didn't mock her. He simply said, "Then I'll teach you," as though it was the most natural thing in the world. A week after he'd carried her from the cellar, Ilara found herself sitting beside him in the packhouse library, a children's primer open on her lap. His hand covered hers, guiding her finger along the words as she sounded them out. The cat sat. She stumbled, frustrated with herself. "I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. You're the king. You shouldn't be teaching basic reading to an Omega who should have learned this as a child." "Why not?" The question stopped her. Because it's beneath you." Kalen turned to face her fully. They were sitting close on the small library couch, his thigh almost touching hers. This near, she could see the flecks of amber in his golden eyes. "Nothing about you is beneath me," he said. "You were denied education because your pack saw you as disposable. That was their failing, not yours. And I would happily spend every day for the next century teaching you to read if that's what you needed." Ilara's throat tightened. "Why are you like this?" "Like what?" "Kind." The word came out rough. "Patient. You could have anyone. You could have beautiful noblewomen who know how to read and dance and run a kingdom. Instead, you're stuck with me, and you act like you're precious?" He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered at her jaw. "Like you're the answer to 3 centuries of loneliness. Like finding you in that cellar was the single most important moment of my very long life." She couldn't breathe. "I am patient with you," he continued, "because you deserve patience. I am kind because kindness is what you've been denied. And I am here, teaching you to read, because there is nowhere else I would rather be." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "You are not a burden, Ilara. You are a gift. The only thing I've ever truly wanted." A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't know when she'd started crying. "I don't know how to be what you need," she whispered. "You already are what I need. You just don't see it yet." He wiped her tears away with gentle fingers, and then, slowly, so slowly she could have stopped him at any moment, He leaned in and pressed his forehead to hers. "I will wait," he murmured against her skin. "However long it takes, I will wait until you believe me." That night, Ilara had the nightmare again. The cellar, the cold, her uncle's voice telling her she was worthless, that no one would ever want her, that she deserved to freeze in the dark. She woke, gasping, tears streaming down her face, her body shaking with phantom chills. "Ilara!" Kaelin was beside her in an instant. He'd given her the bed, had been sleeping in the chair every night despite her protests. But now he sat on the edge of the mattress, his face creased with concern. "You're safe," he said. "You're here. You're safe." "I was back there." Her voice broke. "I could feel the cold. I could hear him telling me." She couldn't finish. "What did he tell you?" The words spilled out. All of it. The years of being told she was worthless. The punishments for small mistakes. The way her uncle would look at her with disgust, like she was something he'd scraped off his boot. The cellar had been the worst, but it hadn't been the first. It had been years of being slowly broken, piece by piece, until she'd almost believed she deserved it. Kaelin listened without interrupting. When she finished, exhausted and empty, he simply opened his arms. She fell into them. He held her against his chest, one hand stroking her hair, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. He was so warm, so solid, like nothing could hurt her as long as she stayed right here. "You are not what he told you," Kaelin said quietly. "You are strong and resilient and worthy of every good thing, and I will spend the rest of my life proving that to you." "I want to believe you," she whispered. "Then let me show you." He pulled back just enough to look at her, his golden eyes burning with intensity. "Come back to my kingdom with me. Not as a servant or a burden, but as my mate, my queen. Let me give you the life you deserve." "I'm scared." "I know." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, so tender it made her heart ache. "But you don't have to be scared alone anymore." She looked up at him, this ancient, powerful king who had torn down a door to reach her, who slept in a chair so she could have his bed, who spent hours teaching her to read because no one else had bothered. "Okay," she said. "Okay? I'll come with you. I'll try." She swallowed hard. "I can't promise I'll be a good queen. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. But I want to try. With you." The smile that spread across his face was like the sun breaking through clouds. "That's all I ask," he said. "That's all I've ever wanted." The morning they were set to leave for the Northern Kingdom, Ilara's uncle made his move. She was in her borrowed chambers, packing the few belongings Kaelin had given her, new dresses, books for practicing her reading, a silver comb that had made her cry when he'd presented it. When the door burst open, her uncle stood in the doorway. He looked haggard, diminished, his time in his own cellar clearly having taken a toll. But his eyes still held that familiar cruelty. "You think you can just leave?" he snarled. "You think the king actually wants you?" Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs. Old instincts screamed at her to cower, to apologize, to make herself small. But something had changed in the past week. Something fundamental. "He does want me." Her voice barely shook. "He's my mate." Her uncle laughed, an ugly, bitter sound. "Your mate? Do you know how many Omegas have deluded themselves into thinking they were special? He'll tire of you within a month. He'll see what you really are, useless, worthless, a burden, and he'll throw you away. And when he does, you'll come crawling back here." I won't. You will. He stepped closer, and despite everything, Ilara flinched. Because you have nowhere else to go. You belong to me, girl. You always have. The king might have you now, but nothing. The voice came from behind her uncle, and it was made of ice. Kaelin stood in the hallway, and for the first time, Ilara understood why people feared him. His power filled the corridor, pressing down like a physical weight. His eyes had gone cold, predatory, and when he looked at her uncle, he looked at something he was considering killing. "Step away from her," the king said. Her uncle's face went white. "Your Majesty, I was just—" "You were threatening my mate." Kaelin moved forward, and her uncle stumbled backward. "In my presence, after I explicitly warned you what would happen if you went near her again. She's my niece, my pack member. I have the right—" "You have no rights where she's concerned. Not anymore." Kaelin reached Ilara's side, and his hand found hers. The touch grounded her, steadied her racing heart. "Ilara is leaving with me today. You will not follow. You will not contact her. If I learn that you have attempted to reach her in any way, I will return, and I will not be merciful a second time." Her uncle's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "You can't do this. She's worthless. She's nothing. She is my queen." Kaelin's voice rang with finality. "And you will bow." For a long, terrible moment, Ilara thought her uncle would refuse, would say something that would force Kaelin to act. Part of her, the small, wounded part that still believed she wasn't worth defending, almost wanted him to, but her uncle's survival instincts won out. He dropped to his knees, head bowed, trembling with impotent fury. "Good," Kaelin said coldly. "Remember this feeling. This is what powerlessness feels like. This is what you made her feel every day of her life. And unlike you, I'm letting you walk away." He turned to Ilara, and his expression transformed entirely. Warmth replaced ice. Tenderness replaced fury. "Are you ready to go home?" he asked. Home. The word wrapped around her heart and squeezed. "Yes," she said. They walked out together, hand in hand, and Ilara didn't look back. The carriage ride to the Northern Kingdom took 3 days. 3 days of lush forests giving way to snow-capped mountains. 3 days of Kaelin teaching her to play chess, reading to her from books of poetry, talking about the kingdom that would become her home. 3 days of falling irreversibly in love. It happened quietly, without fanfare. One moment she was listening to him describe the library in his castle. 3 stories tall, with windows that catch the morning light. And the next, she simply knew. This was the man she wanted. This was the life she wanted. Not because he was powerful or wealthy, but because he saw her. Really saw her. And what he saw, he treasured. On the final night of their journey, camped in a clearing beneath the stars, Ilara made her choice. Kaelin. He looked up from the fire, and the flames painted his features in gold and shadow. "I want to accept the bond," she said. He went very still. "Ilara, I know you said you'd wait. I know I said I was scared. But I'm not scared anymore. Not of you, not of this." She moved closer to him, close enough to touch. "I love you. I think I've loved you since you broke down that door." "You're certain?" His voice was rough. "Because once we complete the bond, there's no going back. You'll be mine, completely and forever." "I know." She reached up, cupping his face in her hands. "That's what I want." Something broke in his expression. Something that had been held tightly in check, finally released. "I love you," he said. "I have loved you since the moment I scented you. I will love you until the stars burn out." And then he kissed her. The kiss was fire and moonlight. It was centuries of loneliness finally ending. It was a promise and a claim and a homecoming all at once. Ilara melted into him, and when his teeth grazed the mark on her neck, the place where he would complete their bond, she tilted her head back and whispered, "Yes." The world went white. When she came back to herself, she could feel him, not just beside her, but inside her, a warm presence nestled against her soul. The bond, complete and unbreakable. She was his. He was hers. Forever. "My queen," he breathed against her lips. "My king," she answered. And finally, Ilara understood what it meant to belong. 6 months later, the Queen of the Northern Kingdom stood before a full court and smiled. Ilara barely recognized herself these days. The thin, frightened Omega, who'd been locked in a cellar, had been replaced by a woman who walked with her head held high. She'd gained weight, gained color, gained the confidence that came from being loved unconditionally. She'd also learned to read. "Your Majesty." The herald bowed low. "The delegation from the Thornwood Pack has arrived." Ilara's smile didn't waver, though her heart beat a little faster. She'd known this day would come. Kaelin had warned her that her uncle would eventually try to repair relations. The Northern Kingdom was too powerful to remain estranged from, and the Thornwood Pack was suffering from his disfavor. "Send them in," she said. The doors opened, and her uncle entered. He looked older, smaller. The past 6 months had not been kind to him. Whispers of his treatment of the Queen had spread through the territories, and many packs now refused to trade with him. He walked with the hunched shoulders of a man who'd learned humility too late. And behind him, watching, were a dozen nobles from other packs, all witnesses to what was about to happen. "Your Majesty." Her uncle bowed, the words clearly bitter on his tongue. "Queen Ilara, you look well." "I am well." Ilara remained seated on her throne beside her king, where she belonged. "What brings you to my court?" "I hoped, that is, I wished to." He swallowed visibly. "The Thornwood Pack is struggling. Our trade agreements have dissolved. Other packs refuse to ally with us. I came to ask for your forgiveness." The hall went silent. Everyone knew what he had done. Everyone knew what he was asking. Ilara let the silence stretch. "You locked me in a cellar to freeze to death," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "You told me I was worthless. You told me I was a burden. You tried to break me." Her uncle's face went pale. "I made mistakes. You made choices." She leaned forward slightly. "And choices have consequences." She could feel Kaelin beside her, a steady presence radiating quiet approval. He would support whatever she decided. He always did. "I could refuse you," she continued. "I could let your pack continue to suffer. Some might say that would be justice." Hope flickered and died in her uncle's eyes. "But I am not you." Ilara rose from her throne, and the room seemed to hold its breath. "I will not let innocent pack members suffer for your cruelty. The Northern Kingdom will resume trade with Thornwood." Relief flooded her uncle's face. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you." "I'm not finished." Her voice hardened. "Trade will resume, but you will not lead those negotiations. You will send a delegate. You will not set foot in my kingdom again. And you will live with the knowledge that the niece you tried to destroy has become more powerful than you will ever be." She watched her words land, watched her uncle, the man who had haunted her nightmares, who had made her believe she was nothing, crumble in front of her. "I hope you remember this moment," she said softly. "Every time you look in a mirror, every time you see evidence of my success, I hope it haunts you." She turned away, dismissing him. Behind her, she heard shuffling as guards escorted him out. She didn't watch him go. Kaelin's hand found hers. "I'm proud of you," he murmured, for her ears alone. "I'm proud of me too," she admitted. And she was. That evening, in their private chambers, Kaelin brushed her hair while she read aloud from one of the poetry books he'd given her. Her reading had improved dramatically over the past months. She was already halfway through the Royal Library. "You were magnificent today," he said, working through a tangle with gentle fingers. "I was terrified." Being terrified and doing it anyway is the definition of courage. She set the book aside and turned to face him. 6 months of marriage, of bonding, of learning each other in every way, and he still looked at her like she'd hung the moon. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For breaking down that door." She reached up to touch his face, tracing the strong line of his jaw. "For seeing me when no one else did. For being patient when I couldn't believe you loved me." "I would break 1,000 doors." He caught her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. "I would wait 1,000 years. You are worth every moment of patience, every splinter, everything." "I love you." "I love you too." He pulled her closer, settling her in his lap. "My mate, my queen, my everything." Outside their window, the northern kingdom stretched under a blanket of stars. Inside, wrapped in her husband's arms, Ilara finally understood what home meant. She'd been locked in a cold cellar, forgotten, and left to die. But a king had broken down the door, had carried her into the light, had taught her that she was worthy of love, and now she was exactly where she was meant to be. Thank you for reading. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel for more Lycan King romances and hit the bell to be notified when new stories are posted. Leave a comment with your favorite moment. I'd love to hear from you.